What's up, YouTube? Welcome back to Jackal World Games. And in this video, I'm going to be doing a review for the video game MindJack for the Xbox 360. So, I want to give a shout out to Larry the Batman fan. He's the reason I even have this game and was the reason I was even able to play it. Now, this game is one of the most hated video games of all time. It's referred to as one of the worst video games ever made. Now, what's weird about this copy is it came with two manuals. You don't really see that too often. Right off the bat, I want to say this game has one of the coolest cover arts I've ever seen. I love the cover art for that. That cover art is badass. It's one of my favorite cover arts I've seen. But MindJack is a game that is very hated. It wasn't really that successful. Square Enix game, third-person shooter. Now, I knew about this game back in the day through Angry Joe. I liked his review of the game. It was very entertaining. He didn't really like the game at all. And Larry sent this game to me for like a possible collab type video about more bad video games. And before getting this game from Larry, I'd never played this game myself, but I just knew about it. But after playing this game, I actually don't hate MindJack. I actually like MindJack, and I would actually go as far as to say that I think this game is overhated. Now, it does have its problems, which I'll definitely get to, but can I say this is one of the worst video games of all time? Is this a game I really hated? No, I don't think it was really boring. I thought it was a very fun game to play, and I overall did enjoy my time with this game. So, Mind Jack, the concept of this game is you play as this guy named Jim who's on the front cover. He goes to follow this woman named Rebecca Weiss, and he ends up beating up this person that's an ally of Rebecca Weiss. And then him and Rebecca Weiss through the story are on the run and they're having to deal with this military group called Nurkis, and then they fight some cops. And basically, there's this thing in the game where it's mind hack, where basically there's this thing where you could take over people's minds and control them, or you can make them your mind slaves. And this corporation, Nurkis, and then there's FIA. I don't, to be honest, I felt like the story, I don't fully understand it. It doesn't make the most sense to me. Basically, what I grasp from the concept is that there's this technology that one of the characters in the game and, Nurkis and this corporation themselves believe it's something they can use for ending wars and conflict, and it's a way to control people by hacking into their minds and making people mind slaves, and that's a big prevalent thing in the concept of the story. And, the main person who created it, you find out, created this because they were trying to digitally revive their daughter that had died, but ended up being a failure. And you get parts in the story where the guy who created the concept of mind hack felt like this was a bad idea. This was similar to how Oppenheimer made nuke bombs, however you say his name, and he felt like it would be detrimental and that this is better to be gone. But there's certain people that feel differently about that. So that's like the overall concept and story of the game. So what I'll talk about first is the gameplay. I enjoy the gameplay of MindJack. I think it's a really fun third-person shooter. It's the best thing about the game, I would say, is the gameplay. I enjoy the gameplay of this game. It's very fun. I think the guns are very fun to use. You have machine guns, you have pistols, you have sniper rifles, you have rocket launchers. I think the guns are very fun to use. It's good third-person shooter gameplay. I like third-person shooters, and I think it's a pretty fun third-person shooter to play. I also think another thing about this game that's really cool with the gameplay is the concept of mind hacking. So anytime you're in combat, if you down enemies, you can mind slave them and take over them. Or during gameplay, you just click both your analog sticks and you can take over anybody that's in the area. You could take over a civilian. You could take over the person that's with you. Most of the time, it's Rebecca Weiss. There's another character later on that you can also take over, Lyle Fernandez, who's with you for a bit. You can take over people that you've mind slaved and play as them. And it's cool, you know? Like it's cool to be able to switch between all kinds of characters through all parts of the game. I think that's a cool concept. I think it's cool. It makes the game stand out. It gives it its own identity. It's not just another third person shooter. It brings something new to the table where you can take control of a lot of people and it gives you advantages in battles. Like if there's a civilian in a certain area near some soldiers and you control them, you can get the jump on certain enemies. Or certain civilians will have unique weapons that aren't commonly found. I remember there was this one guy in the city section where you're fighting the police and then the robot shows up. I liked playing as this one guy that was hiding in the alley because he had that red pistol. It was kind of automatic. And, I like that concept. You can even take control over certain enemies that are cool to play as. You can play as a gun wheel. It's a robot wheel that shoots guns. You can take over like flying robots that shoot grenade launchers and guns. There's like two parts in the game where you can take over like this big gorilla that's like a titan. Kind of cool. But the thing that's kind of weird about that enemy is when you fight it, it's a lot more deadly. But of course, when you play as it, it's like the opposite. It's like they take away the power. It's like it's like if you fight that enemy in the game and you control it, why is it not as powerful as it was when you fought it? But there's other things you can play as, like there's these like monkey enemies. I think they're called swarmers. They're like these monkeys that can move around and they have guns on their back. It's kind of interesting. I've never seen an enemy like that before. It's interesting. You can play as those, but the mind hack thing is pretty cool. Now, when it comes to the gameplay, this is where I'll start getting into some issues with this game. First thing I have to say that is really fucking stupid with this game, and this should not even be a flaw with the game because I think this kind of concept is common sense with video games. Every game that is made and played, when you pause the game, should fucking pause the fucking game. For whatever reason, with MindJack, the game does not pause, which makes no sense. So a lot of times, if I had to leave the game and go do something, I had to make sure that it was an area where there was no combat going on. So yeah, when you pause this game, it doesn't pause the game. Like what? Why is it like that? Like I don't get how that's even a thing. Most video games have a common thing of, hey, you pause the game, it pauses the game. For some reason, this game just doesn't have that. I don't know why that wasn't there. So that's one of the things about the game that really does suck. I think that's dumb. Another thing that I really hate about this game, and it gets on my nerves because there's a lot of cool guns in the game. I don't like how in this game, when you're going through the story mode, every little section you go to, your weapons always reset. So let's say there's a part in the game where you found a Midas snapper, which is like there's like all kinds of guns in the game, and then there's red colored guns, which are like the most powerful ones. There's the Midas snapper, which is the red version of the Midas T9X. There's the red version of the one machine gun, red version of the pistol. Let's say that you just have the regular pistol, which the regular pistol is pretty cool. I like how the regular pistol looks in this game, the Cobalt. Those pistols are really cool. They look awesome. Now, let's say you're at a part in this game where you pick up a shotgun and then you pick up a Midas snapper. After the next section, they will take those guns away from you and they'll reset you back to the pistol. And I hate that. I don't know why they did that with this game. It makes no sense to me. What's the point in that? Why do you not get to keep your guns? I think that's fucking stupid. Like you grab guns through the game that you can use for a bit, but like I said, almost every section you go to, they take away your guns and then you're back to your base pistol. It's like, why? I don't know why they made it that way. It's aggravating. I hate that. I think that's one of the worst things about this game because it's stupid. Most other third person shooters, like if you play Gears of War, you keep the guns you pick up. I don't know why that wasn't a thing in this because a lot of the guns are cool. The Midas snapper and the shotgun, some of my favorites to use. I want to be able to keep those guns through the whole game. but I'm not able to do that because most of the time your guns are taken away from you and you have to re-get these guns and you're stuck with a base pistol. I don't understand why they did that. It's fucking stupid. Um, but to talk about some other things with the gameplay, you have plug-in options, which are pretty much like abilities. You can level up in this game, which I don't know if there's a level cap because I got to like level 60 and you can keep going higher than that, but I got all the upgrades and I got all the achievements for leveling up. But you can level up in this game through the story and you get XP and you can get these plugins. They're basically like abilities where it could be stuff like, you can take more damage, you can do more damage, or your mind hack cooldown period won't take as long. Like, because when you're mind hacking, and you also have this ability in the game where, the characters you're playing as, sometimes they get down, you got to heal them and revive them. And there's a cooldown rate to this if you do it too much, where you might have to wait a while to either mind slave somebody when they're on the ground, or you got to heal your teammate. Sometimes you have to wait to do this, and there's like a bar, and some of the plugins make this to where it decreases. Then you have other plugins, like you can make the game harder, you can make the game easier. They're pretty cool. I do like them. One of them is being able to carry 3 grenades. One of them is being able to get more XP in Wanderer mode, which is the Mind Hack mode. But I do think one of the flaws with the plugin system, I feel like they should let you um, to be able to equip more of them because you can only equip 2 plugins and then one that, like, there's one you can select that has a difficulty setting and then some other stuff, I think, for like multiplayer and co-op. But for like the regular ones where you have abilities, you can only select 2 at a time, which I think is a little steep because there's a lot of abilities. So you kind of have to really choose. I mean, the best ones for me is the ones that increase damage and then make it to where you can take more damage. Those are the best ones to have. But the gameplay, besides those stupid things with the pausing and your guns being taken away, I liked the gameplay for the most part. I thought it was fun to play. I would say difficulty wise, it can be a pretty challenging game. My first playthrough and second playthrough, there were a lot of hard parts in this game. This game could be challenging. I did appreciate the challenge of the game. Now talk about the characters. Let's talk about the characters of the game. And there will be some more critiques coming out also for this part. The characters of the game are lacking, to be honest with you. The main character you play as, Jim Corbin, he's there, but he's not really that interesting of a character. Rebecca Weiss, she's not really that interesting of a character. I think the characters could have been a lot better. Now, I will say there is one character in this game that is phenomenal and I think should have been in the game more, and I think he should have been the main character because it would have helped. That character is Lyle Fernandez. That character was awesome. Lyle Fernandez is the character that is good friends with Jim Corbin. He was his buddy and partner back in the day when they went to in the military in the war. And you do hear his voice in parts of the game, but he eventually shows up later on and you team up with him for a bit. And I really enjoyed his character. And, I think the reason he was like the best character in the game is because he had the best voice actor. That's something else I'm gonna talk about. The voice acting for this game is rough a lot of times. Like sometimes the voice acting is okay, but there's times where it's bad, you know? Like there's a scene, I remember this being put in Angry Joe's review where they showed a clip of a guy talking about what was going on, and he was like, I don't know what has happened. The guns and fighting, like the way it was delivered was poor. I think one of the worst voice acting parts in this game was like, okay, spoiler alert. You find out Lyle Fernandez is a turncoat and he wants to keep the mind hack thing and believes that it can be something that can help the world and prevent war and stuff. And he actually killed the guy that made it, which I can't remember what his name is. But the first fight with him, after you defeat him, Rebecca Weiss, the main character says something. That Rebecca Weiss says, let's go get that son of a bitch. And it was bad. It was bad. It was poorly delivered. I'm like, that's awful voice acting. And it's weird because there's moments where the voice acting for Jim and Rebecca Weiss is okay. Like there's times where it's all right, but then there's times their voice acting is just not good, you know? And it's just like, really? So that's why Lyle Fernandez to me is the best character in the game because the voice actor actually gave a shit. Lyle Fernandez voice actor is phenomenal. He put effort into all of his voice acting and he actually cared. He had a really cool voice. I actually thought it was Thomas Jane at first. I'm like, did they get Thomas Jane to voice the character? But no, it's a guy named Robert Slade. Robert Slade was the best voice actor in this game. I liked his voice acting for Lyle Fernandez. And Lyle Fernandez is an awesome character. I loved Lyle Fernandez. I thought he was badass. He had a cool cobalt pistol that was red. He had a really cool voice actor. I like his design with his jacket. It's kind of cool how he calls his friend Jim Boy. He just has a really cool voice tone. And, you know, I guess he's technically the villain of the game, but he's an interesting character. And I just feel like the dynamic of him and his friend Jim is very interesting. And I just thought he was the strongest character in the game. You do end up fighting him more than once, and I guess he dies, which that's something we'll get to. There's like an ending in the game where near the end you fight this like humanoid villain, and then you have a final cutscene with them walking on the roof. And then whatever it was that took over Jim's mind, which is like this mind hack thing, it takes over Lyle, and he has a final conversation with the main character and says, you know, did you make the world a better place, Jim? You know, I tried, Jim. And then he jumps off the roof and the game ends. So I don't know if he dies or if they wanted to do a sequel, but he was the best character. I wish that he was the main character of the game. It would have improved things because he was a great character. I loved Lyle Fernandez. Even if he even if they seemed like they made him the villain of the game, like he was the bad guy, he was the most interesting character in the game, and he had the best voice actor. The voice actor in all of his lines delivered them well, put effort in it, and he actually sounded cool as a voice actor. He was much better at voice acting than all the other characters. I guess there are some other characters in the game. Technically, there's that one guy that the main character beats up, but you only see him twice at the beginning and then near the end when you see his face kind of bruised up from the fight they had. There's this guy named Rook you hear about, but you don't really get to meet him at all, just hear him through audio. There's the character that made MindHack. He's all right, I suppose. His voice acting was pretty good. And then there's this other character, this guy that was you're supposed to meet named Ellis, but you never even meet him. So the characters in the game, more so the main character, Rebecca Weiss, I think are not really that good. They could have been way better. I don't think they're really appealing characters. It's good the game is really fun and fun to play, but the main character, Rebecca Weiss, just aren't that interesting. You know, their voice acting a lot of times isn't that good, and they're just not really interesting characters. And eh, you know, my favorite part of the game was near the end when Jim Corbin teams up with Lyle Fernandez. That's the best part of the game because Lyle Fernandez is interesting. And I really wish they would have had more with them because I feel like their chemistry and what they had going on was short-lived, and I much preferred them two together over Jim and Rebecca Weiss. And they try to do some love interest thing with Rebecca Weiss and Jim, which it works, I suppose, but I just wish they would have did more with Lyle Fernandez and Jim Corbin. I would have even appreciated like a flashback of their military days. So yeah, that's what I gotta say about the characters. The graphics of the game I think are pretty cool. I like the graphic style of MindJack. It has like this cold steel sort of like sci-fi art style. I do like the art style. You know, for Xbox 360 game, I think the graphics are fine for what they are. I like the graphics. The music that is there is decent. My favorite song is the one that plays you hear a few times. More specifically, some of the encounters with Lyle when you have to fight him. I think the song that plays and some of the cutscenes with him is pretty cool. I think the locations and the settings you go through are pretty cool. I do like the locations and settings you go through. I think they're pretty cool. I like a lot of the enemies you fight, a lot of the soldiers you fight. They do look pretty cool. They they honestly remind me of Umbrella from Resident Evil because of their outfit and the mask. I like a lot of their design. I like some of the they call it thumpers. Some of them have shotguns or rocket launchers. There's like these slow moving soldiers. They look like astronauts in spacesuits. They're pretty cool. The robots you fight sometimes are pretty cool. The one big robot you fight, that was a fun boss fight, but that boss fight wasn't really challenging. That is something people talked about a lot as being a flaw with this game is the AI, which AI in video games has never been consistently, like, I guess, perfect because Resident Evil 5 didn't have good AI. People point at Dead Rising 1 for not having good AI, but I don't know, like there it was challenging, but I guess I did notice some flawed AI with MindJack. There were times where the enemies would just kind of run out of cover and I could just shoot them all down easily. So I guess the AI at times was finicky, especially that boss fight, that giant robot. I kicked its fucking ass, you know? So the AI is definitely bad at times in this game. Because that boss fight where you're Lyle and you're Jim, the big robot, all I had to do was get a rocket launcher, keep running to the ammo thing, because in the gameplay there's this ammo thing you can keep going to replenish your ammo. And I just kept going to that and then spamming my rockets at the boss. And I didn't have any issues because the soldiers and the thumper that shoot at you from afar from across the area, they never charge you, they never come after you, and they just kind of stay there. And the thumper, if you set it to certain area, he does shoot rockets, but they only shoot halfway. So that was a pretty easy part. But yeah, that's what I think in terms of like the AI side of things. There's co-op and online with this game, but I didn't get a chance to try it. I doubt there's anybody playing this online because this game, like I said, when it came out, it was hated. They say it's one of the worst video games of all time. They say it's really bad. You watch Nick Joe's review, but I don't agree with that. I, even with its issues, I can't sit here and say that this is one of the worst video games I ever played. I can't say this is a piece of shit because I enjoyed my time with this game. I had fun with this game. This was a fun game to play. I went through it more than once. Besides the co-op online stuff, the achievements I couldn't do, I went for all the achievements in this game. I enjoyed my time with this game. I thought it was a fun third-person shooter to play. I liked the locations. I like the mind hacking ability and being able to hack into enemies and hack into other people and play as them. That was a cool gimmick. I like the setting, the locations you go to, some of them being like city streets, subway tunnels, kind of like futuristic city looking areas near the end. One of them being like sort of industrial type area, one of them being like a ship type area, one of them being like a futuristic kind of cold steel looking subway type station and kind of airport, I guess, place that you were in. So I like a lot of the setting and the locations. I like a lot of the guns you use. I like the gameplay. Some of the music's pretty cool. And, I think it was a fun game to play overall. But it does have its issues. Biggest problems with this game, not being able to pause it, which is dumb. Your guns being taken away from you, which is dumb. A lot of the characters are pretty poor as well as their voice acting with Jim Corbin and Rebecca Weiss. The voice acting for them could have been better in a lot of areas. They could have been much more interesting characters. But I will give this game that Lyle Fernandez was an awesome character. He is a character I will remember. I really liked him. I wish he was the star of the game, like I said. That would have improved things a lot more, or at least him at the helm instead of Rebecca Weiss. I wish Rebecca Weiss and Lyle Fernandez could swap places. I think the game would improve in some ways. 'Cause at least I could just keep playing as Lyle Fernandez because I only got to play as him, which I enjoyed playing as him, but I only got to play as him at that certain part of the game. I think another thing they could have utilized more maybe with this game is that the mind hacking thing in this game, they could have made it to where you had more of an incentive to do it. I mean, I always made use of it, but one of the only times in the game you really are forced to mind hack is when you're fighting the last boss and you have to switch to the robots to shoot these walls that you can't destroy yourself. That's like one of the only times in the game where you're kind of forced to mind hack. But other than that, I mean, you can play through the game without needing to mind hack. I think they could have created maybe more of an incentive, like certain parts of the game where, you have to kind of be strategic and be mind hack. I mean, you can kind of do that. That kind of exists, I guess, but you know, I still did the mind hack thing. But overall, I think MindJack for Xbox 360, I enjoy the game. I think it's an overhated game. It has its problems, some bad voice acting, some crappy characters, stupid things like your gun's not carrying over and not being able to pause. But the game was still a blast to play. It was still fun to play. It had a cool mind hack gimmick and it had cool areas and I like the footstep sound effects. I know that's a small thing, but I like the way they sound, very satisfying. And you know, I, I did have fun with the game, and I would have been it would have been cool to see a sequel. They could have improved things, like if they did a Mind Jack 2, they could have vastly better characters, vastly better voice acting, more of an incentive to mind hack, and they could have made it to where your guns actually stay with you. But yeah, that's what I think of MindJack overall. It's interesting that I got to play this game and experience it. It's like I said, this is listed as one of the worst video games ever made. It's got a pretty bad reputation. Angry Joe's review of it, most people have hated this game, but I didn't really feel that way. I had problems with it, that's for sure. Ain't a perfect game, ain't a classic game. I'm not gonna say this is one of the best games of all time, but I didn't hate this game. I'm probably one of the few people that actually has done a somewhat positive review for it. I enjoyed this game. I thought it was fun. I guess this is a good example that, you know, even if majority say this or they say that about a piece of entertainment, that doesn't mean everyone's going to feel the same way, even if it's mostly hated. So, yeah, I didn't hate this game. I didn't, you know. I thought this was a pretty fun third-person shooter from Square Enix. But I don't think they'll ever do anything with it because of its reputation and because of basically how it turned out. But I don't think it's that bad personally. I really don't. I didn't hate this game. You know, I didn't really have an issue with it to be honest. I liked it. So yeah, I don't think there's anything else I can really uh add that I need to say about it. But that's my overall opinion and review on MindJack for Xbox 360. Once again, thanks to Larry the Batman fan for sending this. Go subscribe to his YouTube channel. And then one more thing I guess I'll mention is that all the characters have like this little Bluetooth headset in their ear, which I think the reason that's in there is because of the mind hack thing, I suppose. But that's my review and opinion on MindJack. If you played MindJack, let me know in the comments what you think of this game. But that's it for my review of this game. Peace out.